had to realize, I was just like, this can't be real. Did they decide to have like a one-night stand? It feels like they're saying, I'm sorry that I exist. He starts to cry. Yeah, I want to split the bills 50-50. Oh my goodness, am I telling my business? Hey guys, my name is Brittany. Today, this video is going to be another reading video. I'm going to take you like kind of along my week. It's going to be kind of like a reading vlog, I think is what I'm going to attempt to do. Yeah, I went to the store. One of the things I wanted, there's a window here, as you probably can tell by the lighting. And there's this window sill, and I really wanted to get like kind of like a stack of books to go on there, like coffee table books-esque vibe. But I want them to be like actual books that I'm actually like kind of interested in, not just like for show, because then it's just like, what's the point? I wanted to tell you about the book that I purchased yesterday. And it is this big like green and white book. It's basically the front pages. It's like a collection of front pages of the magazine over the years between 1988 and 2008, and it's by the Onion's newspaper. So I was reading them, and like a lot of the entries were like super funny to me. They were laughing, and I'll show you some in a second. But I had to realize, I was just like, this can't be real. This can't be real. Like there's this one article where it's just like, oh, 300 people died because this pudding factory exploded. And so I think it's taking like loosely accurate information and then like making everything like a caricature. Or like this one, Saddam Hussein steps down following sex scandal. It's just like, this isn't real news. It's not real news, but it's supposed to be like a satirical, like a satire newspaper. And so I was just like, that is something that I would actually like flip through. Anyway, next order of business is, what book are we reading? I really want to read a book. I want to read a good book, and I want to read a good book in 3 days so I can move on. And like, it doesn't have to be super serious. I want it to be like kind of unserious. Okay, we are gonna start with this has been on my like want to read list. Is we're gonna do Out on a Limb by Hannah Bownam-Young. I'm gonna read it on my iPad. I'm not gonna buy the physical book because like, what if it's not good? What if the book's not good? Anyway, I have things to do, place to go. Let's go. Hi, so it is a new day, a new dawn, a new life. Hi, okay, so I wanted to talk about the book really quickly. I'm not that far in it. I guess I'm 100 pages in, and one thing I would recommend about this book is if you wanted to read this book, it's called Out on a Limb. I would not read the author's note. Like, if you want to go into it like blind, don't read the author's note. Because when you read the author's note, it kind of tells you about something that happens in the book. And I didn't ever read any of the synopsis for the book. I just knew that it was about a love story, and that at least one of the people, because you can see from the cover, like one of them has a disability. But in the author's note, she kind of explains some things, which I think is great context. I would say great context. But I would read the author's note after you read the book. I mean, like at the end, I would go back to the author's note and then read that. Because I read the author's note, and she kind of like mentions something because she talks about a topic that is controversial that I really honestly don't think that it should be controversial, but that's me getting into politics, so we're not going to get into that right now. but she talks about a topic about like kind of something that happens to the main character in the book, and how, yeah, some things, and like just kind of like giving us a purview of it. So the book starts with a girl, her name is Win. She is at her best friend, low-key like sister cousin type thing. They grew up together, their moms were best friends, and they raised them together because they were like teenage moms. Her friend, her name is Sarah. She's having a Halloween party and with her and her husband Caleb. And yeah, so Win is there. She's just like obviously having fun, and she has a disability as well. And so one of her things is that like every year she dresses up as a pirate. There's this other guy who's at the party who's a friend of Caleb, like Sarah, her best friend's husband's friend, if that makes sense. His name is Bo. He's also dressed up as a pirate. And so they kind of like have this, like, that's how they kind of start having conversations. And then they like sit down and they're just like having small talk and just like talking about like random things. And like there's like banter in this book. They decide to have like a one night stand. And so they have a one night stand, cool, fine, whatever. And then that's kind of like the prelude. And then the book kind of starts. There's a conflict. There's a well, yeah, there's a conflict of interest, low-key, and then two, there's like some other stuff that happens that requires them to start speaking again. So the last thing I read was they met up for coffee at a coffee shop, and she finds out a lot more information about him because like she's very curious on like how he lost his leg, because she says that like she was born with like her disability, like she had it from birth. And she was kind of curious, but she's like, that's insensitive for me to ask, so she doesn't ask. But over time, she's like, they go and have coffee, and he's kind of telling her more about himself and background information that she wasn't privy to. And so that's where we are at. That is a little bit of a like 100-page update, and then I think I'm just gonna give you an update probably like every 100 pages, and then at the end we'll like sit down, and then I'll give like more like, if you want to know what happened in the book, I'll give you more like spoilers of things. So, yeah. So, I'm pretty sure like many people talk about this like in romance books or whatever. But for me, in oh girl, I think what I like about romance books in general is the small things, like how the author like builds the characters, like the building blocks of why the reader is supposed to understand why they are infatuated or like or love each other. As I mentioned, both of the characters who they have just both of the main characters who I'm assuming are falling in love, they have some like they have both of them have a disability. And there's these moments in time where like they're going through life and they're doing normal things, having normal experiences, but there's like these nuances with each of them being very like considerate with each other and how they're navigating the world with those disabilities. And so there's a lot of things that the character says and the character goes through specifically because she has a disability. And even in the author show, she mentions this, but there's things that even if you don't have disabilities, you can relate to in your own life. Just trying to say, there's like these moments where you're just like, I've been there, like I've been there, and maybe not in the same severity or brevity of it, but I see you, I understand you. There's this one, I'm so sorry, I always feel as though I need to like talk about a quote. So there's just one part where she's like kind of recounting her childhood. She's talking about her childhood and how she went swimming and all her friends came and they're all taking a picture that kind of like highlights her, like one of her, like her disability. She's trying to hide like her differences from like how she looks from her friends in the photo. And she goes up to her. So Sarah's mom's name is Marcy. And she goes up to Win and she's like, you can't change anything by hiding it. You will just look back on the memories and realize you try to erase yourself. And how sad that would be. And it's just like, and I know it's just like, it's so nuanced. Have you never been a person who's trying to like hide something as a way to, I guess, be more acceptable or to look like everybody else? And I guess like for me, am I telling my business? Obviously, it's really not my business. Like, you can see it. But I feel like for me, like my birthmark on my head, because like always like different and like kind of growing up where there was like a lot of questions of like what is that and like what's wrong with your forehead or did you get burnt type questions. Having all those questions and then also like being in a place where like I can hide it with my hair if I wanted to. And I think, do I hide it? I think sometimes maybe subconsciously I do hide it. I'm not comparing a birthmark to a disability at all whatsoever, but it's just like one of those like little small things where it's just like I see you and I've been in a place, and I think a lot of specifically women have been at a place I didn't like something about my body, and so I tried to like, distort it or have a certain angle or do a certain thing to like hide it from pictures. And it's the idea of you're not going to grow up and forget that one thing that you didn't want to show. It's just that you're just gonna look back on your memories and be like, you tried to like erase part of yourself, and how sad that would be. And I was just like, I'm gonna say one more thing for the night. What I love about this main character is like her ability to advocate for herself, like being a woman specifically, and being a woman specifically who knows how to advocate for yourself is one of the most beautiful, amazing traits that you can have that you honestly have to learn over time. But being able to advocate for yourself, to be like, no, I'm going to ask the question I'm going to need to ask. I'm going to provide myself the necessary information that I need in order to move forward is such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing. And unfortunately, that sort of level of advocacy for yourself comes through experience. It does. That's all. Good night.
What's up? Fresh is our turn, baby.
I made a very intelligent decision yesterday to stay up until 3 o'clock reading the book. Is that ideal? No. As I believe I mentioned earlier, I decided to stay up to like 2:30ish reading the book, which I feel like, not to judge, but I guess like when I become a faster reader, I felt like I could finish the book in that time. But regardless, and when I woke up this morning, I felt fine. Now I'm kind of paying for it. Like I feel like my body is like slowing down. Like, I guess it's like the next 100-page check-in. I think last thing I checked in with you, they had to move in with each other, like Win and Bo. So like they're moving in with each other, but Win is very much like, hey, we're only gonna be living together. Like she's more like, this is only a temporary situation. I'm trying to get myself on my feet and get my life together. So I'm not really trying to like become romantically involved with you. And there's some like awkward moments that happen in the book. And there's some like things. They're like, yeah, some awkward moments and things or whatever. That's pretty much it. Like right now, it honestly like low-key kind of feels like a slow burn, because it's like it's very clear that he cares about you. Even in the small stuff, like in the small stuff, it's very clear that they care for one another. And there's like these situations that come up, and there's kind of like this internal, like, because we see it from the main character's perspective, because she's the one kind of narrating everything. We see from her perspective like some hesitancy with certain things, and you see how he like reassures her in like very interesting ways, like very like sometimes like very indirect ways of using her own words to like motivate her. And I would tell you like the specific situation, but like then I would be spoiling kind of like the plot that I didn't want to spoil. Anyway, Win is cool. Like, so that's the main character, the woman main character. Her name is Win. The only thing I don't like is that, I don't know, I just feel like, how do I say this? Like, I've been there, and the reason, like, I've been there to that point where I'm like, oh, I'm a woman and like I need to like prove myself and prove that I can do it all. Like I can prove that I can be that girl. You know, I can cross those T's and dot those I's, and I can do it succinctly and with elegance. Like I've been her. And she's okay, but she's a little unhinged a little bit. And it's just like the idea where it's just like, especially when somebody's offering you to help, accept the help. Allow other people to help you. Like, allow other people to help you. You do not have to do this all on your own. Like, you don't have to do it by yourself. And she's in that, like, main character, like, that strong, like, defiant main character who's, like, broke. She's not broke, but she's not as well off as this man who's trying to take care of her. And she talking about, oh, yeah, I want to split the bills 50-50. Bitch, you don't shut up. Like, shut up. Shut up. Said that he's willing to take $600 from you and that's it. And honestly, he feels as though you shouldn't be paying for nothing. I'm not saying quit your job, right? I'm not saying like, because that gap in employment is a hard one to explain. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm not saying like let him just like consistently take over you, but like if I can take all my money that I'm making and invest and bank it in me while you care about my living expenses, like I just don't understand like why you would like overtly try to like work against this, especially if his motives isn't malicious and he's not doing this as a result of like wanting something in return. What are you doing? Think big. Think big. You're thinking small. Also, another thing I want to mention in this book is that the main characters, oh my goodness, they apologize. How many times is I'm sorry listed in this book? There is 20 separate incidences in this book where I'm saying, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Stop. Stop. Because it's like, it's one thing because the people who are saying I'm sorry, one, don't really have anything to be sorry for. Like, they didn't, like, wrong anybody. Like, they didn't do anything. Sometimes they're saying it as, like, a condolence. Like, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you. Which is, like, it. But sometimes the other, like, probably 20 times after that, they're just saying it just as... It feels like they're saying, I'm sorry that I exist, right? Like, that I'm a person that exists. I'm sorry that I take up space. And it's just like, I want y'all to stop saying you're sorry. Hi, I'm back again. I just finished reading Out on the Limb, and I'm here to spoil it for you. That's basically what this is. You see me, green wall behind me, small collection of books, and a myriad of perfumes that are empty that need to be replaced. Here I am. And I'm going to tell you basically everything about the book, about what you need to know. Very much like if you want to hear the story, but you don't actually want to read the book. I got you. So first, before we do spoilers, my review, I would give this book a 4 stars. It was adequately decent and I enjoyed it. Just a solid 4 stars, right? It wasn't like life-changing, revolutionary. I'm not necessarily going to be thinking about this book after I finish this video. Well, tomorrow. Let's just say tomorrow. It wasn't like one of those books that make you pensive. Does that make sense? Does pensive mean think? Now we're gonna get into the part where I kind of spoil the whole book. And hopefully we can do this quickly. Yeah. It's late. I'm sorry. So, we have 2 characters. I've already kind of introduced them a little bit. We have Win and Bo. They are like the love interest in this book. Win, her name is Winnifred, and she like they both have multiple names, right? But I'm gonna just say the name is Win and Bo in the story just for consistency's sake. When she grew up and she had a very close friend, her name is Sarah. So Sarah and Sarah's married to this guy named Caleb. They're having a Halloween party. And so Wynn goes to the Halloween party. She goes to the Halloween party and she dresses up as a pirate. And she has a hook, right? Like Captain Hook type of vibes. So during the party, this other guy who is Bo walks up to her and says, "Hey, like, funny meeting you here. It's crazy that we're both pirates. You need to change your costume. Like, we can't have two pirates. You gotta change." He's being like cheeky and like comical about it, and she's like, "Ha ha ha, no, I need this costume." And so she takes off her hook of her right hand, I believe, and she shows him that her right hand is smaller or less developed than her left hand. And so at first, because like she does this to like, I guess, multiple people, and she expects him to be like, oh, stunned, and like say sorry and just like walk away, like making it awkward. But he just like looks at her and just like smiles type of thing, and she's just like, what? And so he shows her that he doesn't have his left leg. So they get talking, chatting it up, blase. And so when the girl, she was just like, she basically decides like, hey, do you want to go upstairs, like have a one night stand? And they do that. Cool, fine, whatever. And then the book pops us then next chapter into Wynn is in the doctor's office finding out that she's pregnant. And she goes through a whole whirlwind of emotions and stuff like that. She tells Bo, and when she's telling him, he starts to cry, and she's just like, this wasn't the reaction that I was expecting. And so he's crying because he lost his leg because he had cancer, and he didn't expect to be able to ever have children. So he's kind of like, it's a surprise and he's shocked, but he's also very much looking forward to it. This happens, and then this transpires into him being very super productive and active, trying to take care of Wynn while she goes through this pregnancy. And so, long story short, she moves in with him simply because she lives in an apartment that's like a 6-story walk up, pretty much because the elevator's broke. And him walking up those stairs to her apartment is like not really conducive, and she's not going to want to walk up all those steps when she's like 9 months pregnant. So they move in together, and so she makes it very clear from the jump, like, hey, I want to just be friends. Like, I just want to like be really good co-parents, just be friends, basically cohabitate. And the plan is like she moves in, saves up for an apartment, and then when she has a kid, the child, she moves out. And so of course, like, that doesn't happen. Like, that doesn't happen. So over time, they're like growing to know each other. I'm going to skip a lot of this part because this part felt like a slow burn to a certain extent. They are growing to like know each other, and there's like little kinks and quirks of each other, and what, like, he likes Dungeons and Dragons, and she meets his friends, he meets his father, and it's like this ever evolving circle of life. Because she's just like scared, because she's scared to get in a relationship with him because of her past relationship experiences of this guy who she dated. Like, at first he seemed sweet, caring, and loving, and then he just kind of like switched up on her, and she's just like, nah, I'm not trying to get switched up on. And so she's just going through life trying to figure it out. So long story short, through them being vulnerable and having emotions and sharing those emotions, they finally come to the consensus, like, yeah, like, we're kind of playing ourselves. So they get together, they fall in love, he proposes to her, and then we jump to the epilogue, and they have a bunch of children. And that's the book. Okay. It's a little bit later. Anyway, so that's pretty much the book. It's like, I think with the synopsis, it's pretty straightforward. There isn't really a lot of nuance to it. There's not really much that you need to like overthink. It's just a nice, cute story. And after listening to like The Giver, trying to read the other 3 books that I've tried to read this month, nice closing out, especially since it was kind of like low-key Halloween covered, and today's Halloween. But thank you guys for watching today's video. I will see you guys next week, hopefully. Bye.